Right.
So, you know, now the thing that some of them don't really think about is if you're only doing it twice a month, each of those payrolls are bigger. I mean, so they get more money each month. But, yeah, employees like.
Yeah.
Three
There's the
payrolls.
bi-weekly payroll and the twice a payroll, 2 payrolls a month is called a semi-monthly payroll. But I just wanted to mention something that you had, if you don't mind.
Yeah, oh yeah, no,
That
go
you were
ahead.
talking about client challenges. I always tell my team, not every dollar is a good dollar. And when I first started, we took everybody, and some of them were horrendous. It took me a long time to learn that, you know, not every client is a good client. And some of them you have to walk away from, even though it may be a lot of money. And then some of them you just can't take. You know, you
Yeah,
just
no matter
gotta
what
fire
you
them.
do, some people are unhappy, and they will complain to you, they'll complain to everybody else, and you'll never make them happy.
Right.
So the best thing for you to do is to let them go somewhere else and let them deal with somebody
Exactly right.
else.
That's
Absolutely.
the 80-20
Nothing wrong
rule.
with
Yeah.
Ugly. Now this is where you have little or no control, and as they say, the last 2 years we've had an outstanding example of the ugly. New major legal requirements. I mean, the government's always coming up with new challenges, new things.
Can I say something about that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One of those you may not be aware of, or most of you may be aware of, is the minimum pay that's going up every year in September by $1 an hour. So if you have employees, until it gets to $15 an hour every September, it's going to add $1 more to the minimum wage for the state of Florida. That was passed a year ago.
And that's effective now.
Yeah, it started last September was the first time, and it went up to, did it go up to $9? I think it went up to $9 an hour in September. Last September, so next September it's 10, and then 11, then 12. Each
And this is mandate for all business.
Yes. It's minimum
In
wage, new
Florida.
minimum wage requirements.
Yeah.
In Florida.
In Florida, so Florida, it was voted in Florida, yes.
Yeah, I'd encourage you, if you all have any comments as we go through this, please do that. We've got a small group, so there's no reason not to. Economic upheavals, recession. I mean, the 2008 financial crisis. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of stories about that. Anybody have a business go through that 2008? I mean, it was, I had a business sold. We basically had it, we'd all agreed on a price, had it all ready to go. We were doing the final financial reviews, and the market crashed in October. This was the MBA program, and all of a sudden, our major business was with financial houses in Wall Street. They were hiring MBAs, and all of a sudden, overnight, that business just stopped. So they backed out. They wanted to steal us. We wouldn't let them steal us. Our bank said that we had a line of credit, and I'm going to talk about lines of credit in a minute, but they wouldn't let us use any more of the line of credit for our next payroll, so we had to come up with personal cash. 3 of us owned the business. We had to come up with personal cash to make the next payroll. And the bank also told us they didn't want our business anymore. We've been with them for 9 years, and they said they wanted to call all the notes, and we had to go out and find another bank to work with. And then we found another bank to work with, but we had to put up securities or cash equal to 3 times the debt that they were taking. And we had to put it into a special account that we couldn't touch without their approval until things kind of turned around and credit came around. So I mean, I'm very familiar.
Wow.
And then the last 2 years, I sold my last business in 2017, and I got to tell you, I'm so glad I didn't have the deal with the last 2 years. Unexpected cash flow problems. If you do your planning, and we're going to talk about planning, you can minimize those to a certain extent. But you may have a major client that all of a sudden is merging, going out of business, changing for some reason or other. You lose them, you're going to have a major cash flow problem. So you better be prepared for it. That's where planning comes in. Legal problems. You end up being sued. I've been sued 3 or 4 times. It's a very unpleasant, expensive experience. I never lost a deal, but I spent a lot of money. And in most cases, you negotiate it, but legal problems, and they can come out of left field totally surprised.
And a legal situation, because I've been advising most of my clients that they should try at least get a liability insurance just to offset anything will come up in their business, because folks are always trying to
No.
get reach out.
But even when you've got liability insurance, you still end up with, in a lot of cases, having to pay attorneys. I mean, that's in today's legal system, anybody can sue anybody for anything. And I can give you examples of things that made absolutely no sense, but it happens, legal problems. Payroll problems, problem with the payroll company. I had a payroll for the medical transcription company, and what's interesting about the transcription business is that the employees were paid per line that was typed. Same way we billed our clients, the hospitals and emergency rooms, based on lines typed. So we're using a payroll company, they would enter the lines typed. They were supposed to multiply it by 10 cents, but I got to report one payroll period before they turned it over to draw the money out of the bank, where the girl had screwed up and keyed in $1. So instead of a payroll being 10 to 15,000, it showed the payroll being 100 to 150,000. So that got my attention.
Decimal places.
Yeah. And then right after that, we changed payroll companies and we did all our own data entry. So you learn. Major employee problems, again, kinds of things that come up there, major client problems. Competition changes. I mean, you got a good business going, and somebody like Walmart or Home Depot or somebody comes into your area, and truth matters, the more successful you are, the more likely you're going to have competition. So that can get very ugly. And then surprise problems of all types, weather, economic. I know businesses got involved with floods, the business climate, recession. I still talked about the 2008 financial crisis, which was really bad, and then of course the last 2 years you all are very familiar with. I mean, they're called ugly because you have very little control over them. So what I say is, with the good, you enjoy it, appreciate it, because at some point it's going to change. Beginning of 2008, when the financial crisis hit, American Express came to me and said, we're going to give you unlimited credit this year, no interest for the entire year. I should have known there was something was going to happen. Come October of that year, they said, oh, well, we're not giving you more credit. We would also like you to pay back everything that you borrowed for this year. We'll even give you a discount if you'll do that. I didn't do that, but anyway. So those are the kinds of things that can really get to you. So the question is, suggestions to promote the good, try to minimize the bad and ugly. And the first 2 things up there are the 2 things that I think are most critical. One, have a business plan. It can be a very simple business plan, something that you probably should update every 6 months to a year. It can be very simple if you're just doing it for yourself and your management. It can be 1 or 2 pages, basically what you're trying to do, how you're going to do it over the next year, any changes that you're making from the last year. But that can be very simple. If you're actually going out to raise money, or if you've got stockholders, you're going to have to get into more detail. So a business plan can be either simple or complex. The thing with business plans too is that a lot of them are available online. SCORE has sample business plans online. You can go out, and the library has extensive information online. It's amazing. If you haven't spent any time in a public library, I suggest you do so. The amount of demographic and detailed information that is available publicly is unbelievable. It's almost scary if you really know what is sitting out there. In the public library, I mean, they've got research people that can help you do it. So, I mean, almost any kind of demographic information, salary information by zip code, by areas of a city, by county. I mean, the amount of information is mind-boggling. And the public library is one of the best places to find it.
And the librarians are an underutilized
Oh, they absolutely
resource.
are.
They are amazing. They are really amazing.
Yeah.
I don't want to embarrass anybody, but just by a show of hands, how many people here have a written, not in your head, written down business plan currently in existence?
That's good.
That's really good.
I've updated it in a while though, but I haven't.
Okay, now the next thing I'm gonna
So
ask
it's
you,
time.
how many of you do cash forecasts and budgets that you monitor monthly and then you update them from budget to actual and see what's going on? I'll tell you, the second one is the one that allowed me to sleep at night. Because the medical transcription business, they say I bought into it. They had two guys that were given the business by the law firm that originally started it. And I came in and was talking to him. A business broker told me about it because I had sold the business before. I was looking around. And I came in and was talking to him and asked him, you know, what they were doing. And I asked him, you know, how much cash do you have? And the guy said, well, just a minute, let me see. So he picked up the phone, dialed the bank, listened to what checks had cleared, which checks, he, you know, looked at the checkbook, hadn't cleared. He said, well, that's how much money I got in the bank. I mean, it was, but they were dealing with the Cleveland Clinic. They had several big emergency rooms. I mean, they have really good cash flow.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that they didn't do, and one of the reasons I ended up buying into that business, getting a controlling interest by guaranteeing $80,000 worth of bank debt, and they were doing almost $2 million a year, because they weren't paying their FICA. And if you don't pay your FICA, FICA is considered stealing by the federal government. They will put you in jail. You cannot go through bankruptcy or anything else. It is considered stealing. And they'd already received 2 notices, and I explained to them that if they got a third notice, they would be coming to shut the doors down, and they would be going somewhere they didn't want to go to. So then I guaranteed $80,000 in debt, got controlling interest, and then of course the company paid the $80,000 back. I didn't. So there's opportunities like that. So you know, all the time you're out doing business, what have you, just kind of talk to people, see what's going on. You may be amazed at what kinds of deals are available that you can put together, expand your own business or get into a different business. All right, cash flow forecast budgets. I always say you probably should have 3. An optimistic one, which you show investors or anybody else that you're talking to. You have a pessimistic one that basically tells you if things go to hell, how long you probably can survive. And then a probable one that you think is going to be realistic. And if you do that, and you've got all of a sudden you have a major customer that comes and says they're going to be leaving you at the first of the year, you can see what it's going to do to your cash flow. And I had that happen with the last business. I had a billing company, and we had one of our major clients that was going to leave us. I don't remember, they were merging or doing something. And so we put together a plan. We had to let 3 employees go. And you know, that's upsetting, but because we had a plan, we knew we had to do that, because if we didn't do it, at some point, there was going to be a major cash flow problem. The other question was, this came up this time of year, so the question was, do we tell the employees before the Christmas holidays or after the holidays? What do you think? What would you do in that?
After.
What would you do in that?
After.
Okay, the problem with doing it after is they've already spent money over the Christmas holidays thinking they've got a job. So, I mean, you know, those are the kinds of decisions that can keep you up at night.
And now they can't sleep at night and have a good time. They last good time.
I mean, that was very difficult. I decided we needed to tell them before. We gave them reasonable, you know, at least what we thought was reasonable, monies because we were letting them go. The other thing that's interesting is that a lot of times when you get into that kind of thing, as long as you're not unionized or anything else, you let people go that you probably should have gotten rid of before. And I can't tell you, almost every time that I've had to do that, after it was done, I thought, boy, you know, I should have done this 6 or 12 months ago, but gave you an excuse to do it.
So the question is, you knew that the big client was leaving you.
Well, we knew, you know, they gave us, our contract said they had to give us 90-day notice.
90 days. And then you have to come out immediately with a plan for the cash flow.
Right.
You have to come with that. So you knew about 1 or 2 months before
Yeah, well,
the
that's why,
holidays.
but then we had time to plan for it.
Then you give you time to tell the client, not just the employee, not just on top of the holidays, like
Right.
maybe a month or a month and a half before the holidays. That the blow is a little softer there.
Do what?
The blow is a little softer a month and a half before holidays.
Right.
You gave them
All
a
right.
cushion too, that was the other good thing. Give them a money cushion to land on.
So you have that question.
Question, while on cash flow fees, I use life plan for my business plan, for my optimistic and probable. I do not have a pessimistic plan. Do you know anything about that, and what do you recommend? And question 2 would be, is it best to use contractors rather than employees for your business?
Well, and I actually, in another slide, I get into the importance of contract employees. The key with contract employees, they gotta know they're contract employees, they need to sign a document for contract employees, and then you have to treat them like contract employees. The way and you can go online and look at the federal regs on what a contract employee is, and the biggest problem that a lot of people don't do is they treat contract employees like a regular employee. And that can get you in all kinds of problems because, and this happened several years ago, I wasn't involved, but for a while people were using contract employees a lot. The IRS got wind of it and they started going back, and of course they had employees that were bringing up the fact that, you know, they were being treated like employees rather than contract employees. What the IRS does if they do that, if they decide that those employees were or you had them as contract employees, which means you weren't paying any taxes, you weren't paying any FICA, you know, they were responsible for everything. If they decided that you really were treating them as employees, they could go back and force you, they would bill you for all the FICA charges plus penalties. The employees would probably also sue you. So it's one thing. I mean, it's good to have contract employees depending on your business. You just need to be sure you do it legally, properly, and in a lot of cases you probably ought to have legal counsel just to be sure that what they sign should cover you. And then you need to understand that there are certain things that you can't force them to come to work at a certain time, leave at a certain time. You can give them projects. I mean, you can kind of work what you want done. You just need to realize what the risks are.
Okay, understanding the risk, and when a contracted employee is a contracted employee, they're totally independent as a entrepreneur itself,
Yeah.
not a staff member, so I can't tell them what to
Okay,
do.
yeah, I mean, that's the key
Understanding
to it.
that fact, for a cash operating business, I guess what I was trying to ask is, based on your expertise, would it be recommended for a cash-only business?
A cash-only business?
Right, a cash business to just hire contractors and let them be self-employed.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, just as long as you understand the proper way to do it. No, it's a great way to go. I mean, I recommend it. I mean,
But you,
I mean-
but you need to remember, just because